What if I told you that I run $1 million a year vending machine business and I only work on it less than 2 hours a week? While most business owners are trapped working in the business, I leverage systems that allow me to work on my business from anywhere. Today, I am pulling back the curtain on how exactly I automate my vending routes in different parts of the country so I can catch my kids' flag football games and walk my dog with my wife. Our current vending route has over 100 locations in multiple states across the country. Just last month, we hit over $135,000 in revenue for that month. We currently have routes in Oregon and Illinois. Our main location types are going to be medical facilities like urgent cares or outpatient clinics, residential locations like apartments and or condos, and then any place that has high foot traffic like fitness centers, gyms, and YMCAs. You would think that an operation this size would be stressful, and I would constantly be working around the clock taking phone calls. But my life has actually gotten easier with scale because of what I'm about to share. I want to talk about where my time is spent each week as I manage this $135,000 per month vending route. So right now for our Illinois route that has over 80 plus machines, I spend only 1.5 hours per week. And you're probably thinking, well, what are you doing for only an hour and a half? There's 3 main things I do. I meet with our general manager of the route for a 30-minute check-in every single Monday. I also review our analytics and our dashboard for our P&L statements. So think everything from what our cost of goods were for this month, what our revenue per machine was this month, what our top selling products are this month. That's 30 minutes for analytics. And then the big thing I'm bullish on and I love to always spend time on is I love to try to scale our business. So I spend 30 minutes each week on trying to leverage connections to get more properties to feed our general manager to go do pop-ins to ultimately scale that route from 80 machines to 200 machines by the end of the year. And to be clear, I love to focus on the business, not in the business. So I am not handling any troubleshooting requests, any stocking of machines, any machine installs, any order of product off VendHub, any ordering of machines as we scale the route. I'm focused on the business at a high level. Again, back to meeting with our general manager, the analytics that are going to drive our profit and loss, and then ultimately business development growth by leveraging connections to feed our general manager more connections. Now our Oregon route, which isn't as big as our Illinois route, only requires me to spend 30 minutes a week. And the reason why our Oregon route is so efficient is because our general manager can run this route himself. So literally all I do is review the financials every single month with him. I don't even have to do a weekly check-in like I do in Illinois. So I literally spend 30 minutes a week just reviewing financials with the route to make sure that our P&L is as healthy as possible. And again, the big takeaway here is I am not stocking machines. I am not installing. I am not picking up product from Costco. Our whole process is systems, and hiring the right talent that can focus in the business so I can focus on the business. These systems are the exact systems we give you inside of Vendingpreneurs. So the big piece when you think of actually scaling your staff is building out an EOS system, okay? And so we use an entrepreneurial operating system to build out scorecards that hold our staff accountable. So every one of our staff can log in and see, like you see here, the ability of what people are working on. And the focus of our scorecard is so that we can hold each other accountable. So you think of Eric, our general manager in Eugene, he's solely focused on making sure this route runs itself without me needing to be involved. Further, we have our CFO focused on the P&L and things like that. So this is the importance of having a system that allows our staff to be held accountable, and we can also manage each other and track progress remotely, which I'm super passionate about. In case you have part-time stalkers or full-time stalkers, you just plug them into the scorecard, build out the system of what they're accountable for or the machines they're in charge of keeping stocked, and then the scorecard will run itself over time. What you're gonna see when we build out these systems is we also build out the systems of technology to track all of our routes. So the big thing with that is going to be tracking the sales and the inventory data remotely. So we can log in on this screen and see a consolidated report, as you see here, $71,000 from the sales, but we can also drill into this by machine, by top selling stores, and also by top selling products. And so if a machine is down and not alerted or not running because it lost connection, let's say to Wi-Fi, we're gonna get alerted that it's not running and sales are gonna be down, so our team can get out there. But to take it a step further, we're also tracking inventory. So as you can see here with the Smart Water, it's a top selling product, so we can go in and track how many waters are left in the machine while we're sitting 20 minutes away on our phones or on the laptop in this case, to track that inventory and get ahead of things before it runs completely empty inside of the machine. Now that we've talked about the staffing and scaling of the team, but also the systems we use to track inventory and the machine sales, one thing I want to show you here is our SOPs. And a great SOP that we love to leverage is our stocking schedule, because this stocking schedule also drives our labor bandwidth. So think about it. If we know a machine, like you see here, if a machine needs stocked 5 days a week because it is doing so many sales, that means not only do we need people working Monday through Friday, but it also needs restocked on Saturday. So we might actually have our general manager run the stocking during the week if he works normal hours, but then we're gonna need someone part-time to stock this machine on the weekends on Saturday. So then we can calculate how much time it takes to stock that machine each day, add these columns up, and it'll determine how much coverage we need each day of the week. Because at the end of the day, the great thing about vending and hiring stockers is on Saturday, I don't care if they stock it at 7 a.m. or 9 at night, it just needs to be done on Saturday. And so these SOPs and these operating procedures are crucial for our team to be able to plug and play any help we need as we build and scale our routes to hit the revenue targets we're trying to go after. So now I really want to talk about our hiring playbook, because I think one big thing to touch on, as you can see with only spending 2 hours a week on this massive route, is you need to hire good people and let them do their job, which is work in the business. Okay, so the first thing when you think about hiring people is, where do you find these people? And where I love to find people is going to be an unorthodox place. I'm not on LinkedIn, I'm not in the Indeed posting job ads. I love going to Craigslist, and better yet, what I love to do is go into the gig section of Craigslist. So I don't go into the labor section. I'm not posting a full-time job. In fact, our general manager in Oregon, we literally hired as a gig employee for 2 hours when I only had 2 machines. Well, guess what? Now we have way over 20 in Oregon, and he is our full-time general manager. So you can hire someone based on the labor requirements you need. So if you only have 1 machine, you might only have them work 2 hours a week. If you have 5 machines, you might have them work 10 hours a week. But the great thing about the gigs on Craigslist is these are people that are just like DoorDash, just like Uber Eats. They're going to love to work during their own hours, which is what I love. If they're an early riser, they can go stock the machines in the morning. If they're a night owl, they can go stock them at night. If they have an open window before they pick up the kids from daycare in the middle of the day, they can do it then. So this is where I love to go find labor, is through Craigslist gigs. And the big thing that you got to do when you're interviewing these potential workers is you got to play up this flexibility. So like I just talked about with the night owl guy, the biggest selling point is not going to be pay. The biggest selling point is not going to be how fun it is to stock machines. The biggest selling point is going to be flexibility. Think about it. If you have an operator that wants to go do a 3-day weekend with their family, they can come in Thursday night and top off those machines so that your machines are fresh going into the weekend, and they still get their 3-day weekend. The other piece about this with the flexibility is if a kid is sick and they need to not stock during their normal 8 a.m. stocking, they can come back in the afternoon when their wife has coverage of the sick kid and stock the machine at 3 p.m. There's ultimate flexibility with this job, and make sure you play into that when you're hiring that worker from Craigslist gigs. Incentives drive habits, and that's why I love when you start hiring someone, build your pay structure to focus on incentives. Okay, so one thing we love to do with incentives is to start out with an hourly wage. Let's say in this case, it's 20 bucks an hour. It's gonna depend on where you live and the labor market there. But then you can drive incentives around profits, because at the end of the day, you don't care about total revenue, you care about profits, to get to a $25 an hour, or if you want to frame it as a bonus at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, to get them to that stage. So profits is going to be huge. So they're going to know, okay, I need to keep that machine stocked, and I also need to be very smart about our cost of goods to drive some profitability benchmarks in the scorecard like we showed you in the last chapter that will ultimately drive the health of the business and drive what they want, which is getting paid more. The fourth thing when hiring is ultimately using that machine playbook of what we went over with SOPs, so that prioritization of buildings as ultimately their time structure, okay? And this is where I think people miss the boat. People will think, oh, I need to stock the machines myself because I'm not making enough money to hire an operator. Wrong. Hire them part-time, okay? So one thing we try to calculate is how long does it take to stock that machine? How long does it take to drive to that location? And how long does it take to get product? Okay, so we try to budget around 1.5 to 2 hours per week per machine. So if you have 10 machines, you know that you're gonna need 10 and a half to ultimately, 15 to ultimately 20 hours per week of help to hire to take on those 10 machines in your route. The fifth thing, which is probably one of the most important, is going to be how to flush out character. Okay, and this is why during the hiring process, when you post that ad on Craigslist Gigs, one of the things you need to do is in the description, make sure you make them do something very, very specific. Literally send you an email that has something specific within the ad, because what you're trying to flush out with their character is not, are they a good machine stalker, but is their character, are they doing the little details? Are they showing up on time? Are they actually following instructions to the level of detail that you want done, to really flush out their character over just, are they going to stock the machines? And that's why I love giving them little challenges during the process. I mean, even the little things, if you want to schedule a phone interview with them, make them send the calendar invite to you. And that's really going to flush out. Are they going to do all the little things to offload you, not add shit to your plate? The sixth thing when hiring is ultimately going to be about how do you scale this to remove yourself from working on the business. And that comes down to the playbooks with your SOPs, literally outlining every little thing, almost like a food journal, but for the process of running your route. So everything from the time to get product, the time to order machines, the time to restock the machines, the time it takes to drive from the office and warehouse to the machines, all those things need to outline in SOPs, so then you can plug and play employees, because you might go through 3 employees until that 4th one actually checks all the boxes of what you need. And that's why these SOPs are going to be so crucial for you to ultimately delegate. And if you want to make your route passive, the machines aren't going to stock themselves. So you need to have SOPs and a staff that's in place to run this route like I've built, so that you can ultimately remove yourself and delegate the route to run itself. The big thing I want to get through to you guys is like, what are the real numbers when you build out a route? So when you hear things like 135K in revenue, that doesn't really mean anything unless you understand what's the actual profit. How much money are you putting in your pocket? And this is what I want to dive in today. So as you'll realize real quick, one of the costs to ultimately make this route run itself is going to be labor. Okay, and I'm going to give you 2 examples. Okay, so the first thing I want to dive into when we talk about labor is diving into of my current routes, how it's structured. Okay, so if you think about how we built our routes now, we have a general manager, and let's say we pay him $5K a month. The great thing is, if you're just starting out, you might not need a full-time general manager. Like I was saying earlier, our general manager, the great thing is I hired him when we had 2 machines and he only worked a couple hours a week. So instead of paying $5K to start out, he was literally making $20 an hour times 4 hours a week. And as we added locations, we added more hours. Well, then it got to a point where we got to a place where we needed to hire more help because he reached a full-time capacity and we wanted him to manage the route. So we also added on to make him a managed salary. But what you can do and what we've done is we've built part-time operators underneath him. So we have 3 part-time operators that work a total of 40 hours a week. So 40 hours times $20. Let's just shoot high and say 25. Let's just assume they hit their profitability for the month. 25 hours, okay, times 4 weeks. All right, so right away, 4 times 25 is 100 times 40. We got 4K for our other 3 part-time operators. And the thing I love about this is we're not one single point of failure. So guess what? If our general manager goes on vacation, gets COVID, whatever it may be, we have other people to pick up the work. The other side of this with part-time operators and having multiple is if one of them doesn't pan out, we got coverage until we backfill with that next person. So right now we have a general manager, we pay 5K. We also have part-time operators that are full-time adding up to 40 hours that we're paying 4K. So our total labor expense is right around 9K a month. The second thing I want to talk about is going to be some of these technology fees that might be considered hidden. And I think it's very crucial that you account for them. So one of the first fees you may or may not be aware of with these smart machines. So if we just call these tech fees, you're going to pay anywhere between 5% and 2% in fees for these AI micro markets. Okay, so let's just shoot high and say it's high. So we got 5% in software fees. Okay, because these machines only take credit card, you're also going to pay around 5.9% in credit card fees. So right out the gate, you're 11% of top line revenue going back to these manufacturers. Then you're going to pay, let's say, $15 in data for that machine, depending on which provider you go with. You're going to pay a total for your whole route. This is going to be per machine. You're going to pay a total for your whole route of $60 in insurance. That's very high. I mean, you got to think we got over 100 machines, so $60 is peanuts in the grand scheme of things. And then you also got anything else with related to those fees that might come up that are unexpected, like an install fee or something. We're talking a one-time fee of $50 to $75 to maybe turn on the router or shipping for the router or something like that, if it is a machine that doesn't already come with that. So these are going to be the things that are important as you factor in. So if, for example, our route hit 135K last month in revenue, right away, let's just shoot high and say 11%. So we had 15K in fees from these two. And then we had about $200 in data fees because we've gotten to a point where our data, we've been able to get to a new band of data or plug into Wi-Fi at these properties. And then we have $60 in insurance. So you got to factor in these costs that might be considered hidden costs at first, but these costs, you got to factor into your margins. The third and probably most obvious expense that you can think of is how much did the actual product cost you to put in your machine. And this is what we refer to as COGS, or cost of goods sold. So on our COGS, we like to get away from the Costco and Sam's Clubs. In fact, we love to use VendHub now because then we also get a kickback on rebates that you don't get from when you go to a Walmart, Costco, or Sam's Club. So our COGS now is around 33%. We try to get it to 30% when it's more stabilized, but because we're in such a hyper growth stage right now where each new machine gonna cost you about $500 to $600 of upfront inventory, that we're sitting right at 33%. But if we were like, hey, we're gonna just pause and not take any more new locations, we could get this number down closer to 30%. So if you think of 33% on a 135K route, we're looking at, I'm not a math major, but we're looking at 13.5K times by 3 is going to be 40K. Let's shoot high for another 3%. We're looking at around 45K in cost of goods sold that we're going to leverage for budgeting what our take-home pay is. At the end of the day, we don't care about making 135K in revenue. Sure, it sounds sexy and all that, but we need to get into what is our profits, okay? So if we got, let's say 9K in labor, all right? We got another 15K, again, let's shoot high, let's just say 15,300 in fees. And then our cost of goods, again, let's shoot high at 33%, 45K, all right? Our take home is going to be anywhere, let's just count this up. up. We got 9K, 25K plus 45 is gonna be 60K. Our take home that's expenses. All right, so our profit, 135 minus 60, we're looking at another 75K in profit last month based on our take home. The big thing that I keep always preaching is you want to be around 40 to 50% margins of your top line revenue to be running a healthy business. And that is definitely running things in an efficient manner, which is going to be what we're definitely happy about. So to take this a step back, when I was talking earlier about our operator that we hired to run the route at 2 hours, or 2 machines, when we had 2 machines, if you have 2 machines doing 2K a month in revenue, then your take home, your goal should be at least 1K in take home pay. Okay, so enough to pay for your country club membership or your nanny or whatever your life goals are with those 2 machines as a side hustle. As much as the revenue and the profits are great with vending, I think I want to take a step back on the why I got into this, okay? And I look at vending as the lemonade stand of the 21st century. Okay, and what I mean by that is the vending is going through a revolution, as I've talked about in the past. The best part for me is I'm literally building a business that prioritizes family time and prioritizes generational wealth. So if my kids do want to get involved in such a simple business model, they can. But the whole goal of this vending route is that it doesn't get in the way of what I prioritize. Okay, so when we talk about priorities and the why I got into vending, the first one is going to be all about family time. Okay, get this. If a machine runs out of Snickers, people are gonna buy a Twix. So family time for me, I'm not getting called from my boss about a sales quota from my old job in the Silicon Valley. This whole thing is if a machine breaks down, they'll just go buy from the next one right next to it. So family time for me, this has allowed me to spend more time coaching my daughter's flag football team this year, to being able to go on dog walks and being able to have those meaningful conversations with my wife, to even to the point where I can drop off my daughter at daycare every morning and I can pick her up from daycare every afternoon. So there's this piece of this, to me, the biggest and most important piece is not the revenue or the profit, it's literally the why, which is the family time. The second thing on why I got into vending is because of the freedom. Think about it. With vending, our first machine allowed us to hire a nanny. Our fourth machine allowed us to join the country club and allow me to golf on Friday afternoons. So that freedom to be able to do things when we want to do them is so important. I mean, my wife literally just started a pickleball league in the afternoons because we can afford to send our kids to daycare and she doesn't have to stay at home and watch them all day, even if she wants to. She has the freedom and the choice to pick when she wants to and when she doesn't want to. And the third thing about this to me is the peace of mind. At the end of the day, food and water are essentials for people to live, and vending cash flows so steadily that the peace of mind and being able to rely on that income coming in is so great that it doesn't matter if you hit your quota because you're in a cutthroat tech job, or if you do these other things in a business like Google laying off a bunch of employees recently. The peace of mind and boring businesses is so nice to know that it's a stable cash flowing asset that you can rely on and that paycheck to come in every single month on repeat. When I was working 80 to 90 hours a week as a strength coach, only making $1,200 a month, I literally thought working harder was the answer. Now I know working smarter and building systems is what creates true freedom. If you want to learn how to build a vending machine business the right way from day one, I've created a free step-by-step guide that shows you exactly how to do it. You can find that down below using the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.